You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we're going to dive into content. Just had a few week break here. Took some time off with the family, made some trips to some of these big shows that are out there, and hosting a bunch of dinners. But along the way, I got introduced to what I think is going to become a fast friend of the network as a whole. Max Sinclair over at eContent, and the conversation today is going to be around content, primarily around Amazon optimization for Rufus, the A9 algorithm, everything as a whole, but doing it at scale. And so Max came highly recommended from a variety of people within the network. And so once we got to talking, I was like, we need to totally do a podcast on this. So here we are. Max, I'm going to kick it over to you. If you want to do, I'd love to hear your background. I always love that story as a whole. Then I'd like to jump into a little bit around eContent and what you're doing there and the why and the how and everything. And then, we're just going to have a cool conversation for the next 30, 35 minutes or so. Sound good?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Awesome. So what's the background? Yours as a whole, and then how'd you end up with eContent as an idea, as a business model, and all that fun stuff?
Sure. So my background was at Amazon. I left university. I went straight into Amazon at 21. I worked there for 6 years. Started in 2016 when Amazon was 350,000 people and was $700 a share, roughly. And I came into the business as a strategic account manager. So I was managing some of the household names if you're in the Amazon space, people like Anchor and Domu and Sun Valley Tech and these big sellers. I was kind of like their internal Amazon account manager, running point across their EU marketplaces. And then skipping forward a little bit, I was part of the team that launched Amazon Business in the UK. This is in about 2018. So the Amazon B2B. I then was part of the team that went out to Singapore and launched Amazon in Singapore. Specifically there, I was responsible for the launch of the browse nodes and for the catalog quality. So I was working, I've always worked in the 3P realm, but I started to work kind of with A9, of discoverability, with this kind of stuff, setting up, as a program manager, setting up the catalog there. Then I came back to the EU and I spent a couple years working in the 3P grocery business, so helping supermarkets sell on Amazon 3P, people like Morrison's, Dia, Monoprix, across the EU, and I led the scale up of marketplaces, grocery sellers selling through marketplace, from one merchant when I joined to 10 by the time I'd left. We had 10 supermarkets selling across the EU, and I left Amazon in I want to say September 2022. And basically my now co-founder showed me the very first release of Stable Diffusion, which was the first open source AI model. This is before ChatGPT, before Midjourney, before anything like this. And open source means you could download it on your computer, you could train it, and you could commercialize it. So this was really the inflection point of, the mini inflection point of AI before ChatGPT. And I asked my co-founder, rather than just generating like a random image, could you take this mug, which is of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, because I'm British. But anyway, could you take this mug and could you generate a specific lifestyle image of this mug? So not like a generic image, like kind of the Midjourney idea, but given my e-commerce background, like could he do that? And he built basically a sample of it over a weekend. and it had all of these issues that AI did back in the day of hallucinations and distortions of the product and all this kind of stuff. Basically, I could pretty immediately see how transformational this was going to be. And I quit my job at Amazon. We went full time into launching e-content, which stands for e-commerce content, kind of amalgamated into one word. And yeah, we were probably, well, one of the first, if not the first, kind of AI image generators on the market. We were doing that for a few months, and then ChatGPT launched. And then that was just an explosion in terms of people understanding prompting. But before that, nobody understood how to prompt because they just never worked with this kind of technology before. And also it kind of, I saw how impactful conversational AI was. I mean, everyone else did at the same time, right? But like my unique perspective was this is going to be the future of search on marketplaces. And having worked in search on Amazon and worked on the catalog, I could just see how much more intuitive it was to kind of type in a prompt and get a response back and maybe a couple of products. And I just firmly believed that Amazon would adopt this because Amazon's customer obsessed. They're always going to do what's best for the customer. So I just felt that this was going to be the future of search on Amazon. And we kind of started building for what is now Cosmo and Rufus back in end of 2022. So we spent, we basically had a year and a half preparation. We raised a bit of venture capital, spent some time out in San Francisco, kind of readying ourselves for this like eventual thing, which became Rufus and Cosmo. And now we're kind of, I'd say, the leaders in helping sellers adapt to Rufus and Cosmo.
Yeah, I would love to jump into the Rufus and the Cosmo side, but I think you're right. There's all this stuff that took place beforehand. So we're talking about, AI content generation as a whole, right? And you're right, the hallucinations that were taking place that you just look at it, you're like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
But I think that pivotal point, like, I think you're right. Like, there's all this stuff that was going on beforehand, but when ChatGPT came out and everybody could use it and have access to it and then see, I don't know, it's like there was a comfort level that then came along. Everybody's still freaked out, but they realize, at least what they're dealing with. And so the mindset, not just of the public, but on the business side, completely changed.
Yeah, 100%. It was incredible to watch because like we had done, I want to say like we were early on, but maybe we had about 15, 20 customers before ChatGPT launched. So from launching the business in roughly September to November, a few months, I think we had a few customers, and always they had no idea. Like we'd be like, just type in a prompt and you'll get like an image of your product back to you, like however you imagine it. And it was such an alien technology. People really had no, like they really struggled to it. But then once they got it, they'd be using it for hours and hours and hours. And you could see like our customers were just like sitting on e-content, like just generating image after image after image after image, which was really cool. But then, ChatGPT completely changed that. Like suddenly, I guess everyone knew about prompting. Everyone knew how to prompt. It became quite novel. It became a lot less novel. So like we weren't, like people would not, they'd use e-content for business. They wouldn't use it for pleasure anymore. Like they'd use ChatGPT for pleasure. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I know. So I do a lot of webinars, and we kicked off a YouTube page, and my oldest, just to house all the content so people could replay it whenever they wanted. And so we were generating a logo for it. And the idea that you can ask it whatever you want as many times as you want is very different, right? Because if you're asking a person, somebody that's working for you, hey, can you go do this logo and give me 10 different ones? And they give you 10 different ones and you don't like them and you ask them to go do it again. And they go and do it again. Then you ask them to do it again. And now they're starting to get irritated. And then you feel kind of bad because they're getting irritated. This idea, like you can just sit there and say, nope, do it again. Nope, do it again. And you can do it literally in perpetuity. And it costs you no more money, right? No more time. Because it's done near instantaneously. I shouldn't say no more time. But you're not irritating anybody. Like I can totally see where if people start doing it, all of a sudden they just start generating content on a nonstop basis. which is unique, which I do want to get into, because there's a couple of things that pop up in this. Is one is on the image generation side, for the longest time, it was just like left of center. It wasn't quite right.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it would get you partway there, but then you have to have somebody that's able to sit down and piecemeal and put it all together, which was another thing that was just, somewhat irritating, time consuming, expensive, all those things. And yet at the same time, the need for content has gone through the roof. Um, are you training it differently? Like, how do you actually get better content?
So we're not training models. So I think there's probably like 6 or 7 companies out there which are actually training base models. So this would be Anthropic, who do Claude, Meta, obviously, who train a load of models, Google, OpenAI, Minstrel. So there's kind of like these base model companies. They've raised billions of dollars, or maybe tens of billions of dollars. They're building big infrastructure out, with all this computing costs. So we're not one of those companies. What we do is we've got a patent. Our technology is around the fine tuning. So we take these models and we adapt for e-commerce. And also our focus is kind of optimization for AI powered search, as we'll get on to talk about. So we're one of these companies where, we haven't raised billions of dollars, but we're kind of taking these models. Most of this stuff is open source, so you can just fine tune it, which basically means you can show it in the earliest days. What we would do is we would kind of purchase like e-commerce visuals, like high quality lifestyle images, and we would basically run Stable Diffusion v1 with all of these lifestyle images, so the output would look more similar to the training, which would be more similar to like kind of the high quality lifestyle image that we'd want, rather than a cartoon or anime style or pop-up or all the various other stuff that was in Stable Diffusion with like their billions of training images. So you kind of would fine tune it with like high quality data, and then it would push the model to generate stuff more like the fine tune output than like the base model. So I'd say you can get like, it's not going to be a massive improvement, but you can get like a 5-10% improvement in quality from fine tuning. Obviously, the big leaps have to come from the actual base models being better, and I think those leaps have happened. So, Stable Diffusion 1, which is the first thing we used, it was. I put out a tweet, I guess, a few months ago, just comparing like same prompt, Stable Diffusion 1 versus where we are now, and many people are familiar with Midjourney. So, like, I'll describe it in the Midjourney words, like, if you put in Midjourney V1, which was released at kind of the same time that we started, like a hamburger, you would get this kind of grainy, kind of like impressionistic art style thing, which would roughly resemble a hamburger if, Vincent van Gogh had painted it in his later years, right? Like roughly, but kind of maybe, or Picasso or whoever, right? And now it's hyper realistic. And it's just incredible how fast this stuff has moved in 2 years. These are the base models improving, and I mean, if we think about where this will be in the next 2 years, I think not only will you just be able to get like a hyper realistic image of a hamburger, but you'll be able to get a hyper realistic video of someone eating that hamburger. So like you'll go from like what we have now as hyper realistic static images to like hyper realistic video. And my sense of video where we are now is you still have this slight weirdness and distortions of kind of like the video. Like Luma is one video. I don't know if you know any other names, but there's a Runway. There's a handful of these guys, right? But it's all a bit distorted. Like if it's got a human in it, they'll grow an extra limb, and then that limb will disappear. It's all a bit weird now as we're talking in October. But it's going to be the same as what happened in Image. You're going to get to that like hyper quality in 2 years or less.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I was just thinking from this context of as we're talking, just to let the listeners know around e-content. So think about originally how I was introduced to Max was, I think, via George, right? Westcott over at A Ventures was. If you're thinking about an Amazon detail page, just so we can level set, imagine everything on it being kicked out not, I wouldn't say instantaneously, but near instantaneously for that, from bullet points to product descriptions to titles to
Yeah,
images, including A plus detail page content,
yeah,
high quality, accurate, um, like just kicking out content like that for every one of your ASINs. That's
yeah.
kind of the platform for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Max.
That's
That's
exactly. We generate the content at speed and scale. We optimize for Rufus and Cosmo, and yeah, we're generating the entire product listing. Not video yet, but we'll, as soon as the base models for video are ready, we'll be fine tuning them for e-commerce and adding video.
and just so people, is it e-content? Is it dot
Dot AI.
com? Dot
Dot AI.
e-content dot
We
AI.
or .com. We own both, but dot AI is yeah.
I would go check it out. This is pretty revolutionary, and one of the biggest, Max, we were talking about this before. Was profitability is the number one driver. I mean, everybody that's listened to the podcast has known that I've been talking about this for 8 or 9 months now, because this is what the brands are telling me they're focused on. And one of the biggest things that they struggle with is actually producing the content. Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's two things: producing the content. The other one is actually getting it uploaded to all the different the platforms that are out there. But producing the content is so expensive and so time consuming that if you can do it at speed, at scale, in a reliability, and the quality that's going to come out, but you also know the cost. It's a game changer for brands right now.
Do you see brands adopting AI at the moment?
I have brands wanting to adopt AI, and where they've done it right now is actually these other tools that don't involve content. So there's like I had Aaron on here from Orita. It's like it's an email tool for AI optimizing who's interacting, who's not, segregating flows, putting them into categories, not emailing as much except for your core people, but looking for new interactions when to pull people back in. That's great. There's a AI tool for procurement that does the day-to-day task of your procurement team, who are always fighting fires. Their average savings right now is like 15% on procurement costs. So AI and these generative content generative platforms they're adopting. Where do they hold their breath? Is they hold their breath on a tool that's kicking out content for 100 ASINs, all of which need to be overlooked and monitored and edited 20%. The images aren't right. That's where they're hesitant, because they haven't seen a tool that does it, which is why I was like, excited to have the chat with you. Was what's going on in this space is, I don't think that people realize how quickly it's adapting and changing and getting better on a logarithmic scale, right? This isn't like just linear now; it's logarithmic.
No.
So, I mean, but that's got to be what's the number one conversation you're having with a brand for the first time? And then again, everybody, we are going to get into Rufus, and we're going to get into the next generation of search and how it works. But what are the conversations when you jump on with brands? Is it like, hey, just prove to me it works? Like, that's what I would think it would have to be.
So, I mean, there's kind of two areas of like brands either want to look at generating content at scale. So you'll have a brand who has thousands or tens of thousands of SKUs, and they kind of feel like there should be some AI platform out there that can help them to generate stuff at scale. Often customers, most brands I speak to, which is why I'm interested in asking, will have, they'll be using ChatGPT, and they'll be developing some of their own prompts for that, and they'll be using Midjourney, and they'll be using Photoshop. So they have all of these like different AI tools that maybe their content team's using. But if you've got thousands of or tens of thousands of SKUs, you still have to have someone using all of those tools individually across each SKU maybe takes a day per listing or whatever. So therefore, like there's people come to us because they feel, oh, there must be some saving somewhere, and that's what we do. And the other one is yeah, this kind of this intrigue and kind of excitement about how to optimize for AI powered search. Like we, as I mentioned, kind of in the introduction, like this was a firm belief that we had early on in the company. Like a few months after ChatGPT launch, I believed that was going to be the future of what Amazon looked like, and it was a matter of time before we got it, that became the case. And there's obviously a lot of advantages of being an AI company that generates content to optimize for this stuff, right? Because you're optimizing for an AI algorithm. So yeah, like that's the other thing that customers come and talk to us about.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think every brand that comes to you is just hoping that you work, right? But they've ran into a lot of you who haven't along the way. Everybody and their brother has come up with a new tech tool since, the 1 year, like since 2021, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of them actually worked. But every time, like, people are hoping, especially in this space, that it does, because
Mm-hmm.
it'll relieve that constraint and the pressures on the budget side as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then let's talk a little bit about what the future of search looks like, because I think I was chatting with George about it, right? Which was, when you think about conversational commerce and as a whole, and how, Chat GPT, OpenAI, whatever we want to say, like, you can just, they have the setting where you just talk back and forth with it, right? You're not even typing anymore. And
Yeah.
what what does the future look like in this space where people aren't necessarily just typing stuff in? It's
Yeah.
conversational. And then, like, let's talk a little bit about Rufus and what people have to be prepping for, like, right now, because you can't wait anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I the way my mental model thinking about this is I don't believe like the way that we have kind of landed on e-commerce in early 2020s is, I think it'd be really foolish to believe that is where e-commerce ends up. Like, obviously it's not the case, right? Like, obviously things are going to change massively. If you just look through history, like, things always look very different kind of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years on. So and obviously this technology, Gen AI, is so transformational that it's probably going to have a bigger impact than as big of an impact as the internet did in creating e-commerce, right? So, like, I think the changes will be on that scale. Where I see it ending up in the longer term is, I think we will have smart appliances. So we'll have smart mirrors, which are kind of helping us to order the right, beauty products, or fashion products. We'll have smart fridges that are helping us to order our food and judging what we have in the fridge, and helping us to complete baskets or create recipes or whatever. I think they'll be, highly likely we have like an AI agent type thing, which is, our personal assistant. So if you're doing a low value a purchase, like changing a light bulb, or replacing a dishwasher part, that the AI is, you're just going to trust your AI to order it. So and kind of even this kind of like Tesla bot in the home, some humanoid, maybe like a physical AI assistant as well, that also could be doing some form of basic shopping tasks as well. So I think the future is going to look radically different. But what if we take the next like 2, 3 years, 4 years, or even, well, I say maybe even next year or now? I think that's where we get into the kind of LLM, large language model integration space. So this is what Rufus is. It's like, I'm sure all of your listeners have kind of seen it now, but it's kind of like ChatGPT integrated into Amazon. You can ask it questions, and it will give you, rather than giving you thousands of product listings back like traditional A9 words, it will give you, two, 3 or 4, highly personalized results. And these results are just going to get better and better, more personalized, and more personalized, more relevant. And then you can kind of ask you questions on the individual product page itself and make a purchase. So this office chair I'm sitting in, I purchased using Rufus. didn't do any searching, just kind of talked to Rufus about my requirements. I said, hey, I want an office chair. I want it to be, I care about high customer ratings, and also I want it to be comfortable. And that's more important to me than price point. It gave me kind of three options. I picked this one, and I purchased it. So I believe that, by the end of like mid next year, let's say 50% of customers are going to be using Rufus to kind of shop, unless you're shopping for, maybe fashion or something like this. I think if you're shopping for most product categories, it just makes sense. Like, I don't want to see thousands of stuff. I just want to get the best one for me, based on my preferences and price points and everything like that. So that's Rufus.
Yeah, I mean, that's that old adage that it's not a search engine, it's an answer engine, right? That's
yes,
where we're
exactly.
going. And that's what most people want, right? I don't need 5,000 options, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just need the top three. And quite honestly, like you were saying, for like a light bulb or batteries, it might just, I don't even need three options, right? I need AAA, I need AA batteries. Mm-hmm. Just order them for me, please.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it'll be. What it does is, I think people will get more and more used to is that conversational, where they won't necessarily even be on a keyboard at that point in time. When you've got an AI assistant that you can interact with, why would you type it out, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you just say, hey, I'm looking for a new office chair. Oh, okay, here's, the top three. It's actually probably going to ask you for prompts to help it get refined over time. Okay. Oh, what is your price range? What's important to you? It's going to, and then it's going to narrow it down and say, okay, here's the top three at these. Do you care which one I order? No, let's try one. It's going to be.
Have you used it, Aaron?
What's that?
Have you used Rufus yet?
I've not used Rufus yet. Okay. I use Chat GPT for literally, planning vacations, right? And that's just going back and forth.
Yeah.
I haven't jumped into to Rufus yet. You're telling me I should literally.
I was just interested. Yeah, I was just interested. So I think I think the adoption is going to be very steep, but maybe people listening have, maybe they haven't. Just interesting.
No, I just don't do a ton of shopping. It's just repeat purchases. It's easier for me to just say, go back into my past purchases and just yes. But the holidays are around the corner. I'll have to go give it a try. But I do now, even with Chat GPT, just have a conversation essentially with it. Right. We were just I was just on a road trip with my younger two boys, and there's a conversation that popped up, and we just we're riding with it was a volleyball tournament, so they had a bunch of friends there. We're in the van, we're headed out to dinner, and they ask a question. I just pop it open, and we started having a conversation back and forth around refining. It was everybody's mind was blown, and I think to the point is, everybody that was in the car, like, I was the only one who'd used it, but coming out of that, right, all of the adults were going to use it. That was all you need to do is try to use it one time. And I think when you're talking about the adoption rate, once you've started doing it, it just takes off.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be awesome. Especially, I think it might allow Amazon to even go upstream in some of those purchases, because a lot of those other purchases, like a higher ticket ring, like people want to feel good about what they just bought.
Yeah.
Right. They don't just want to go buy, spend $2,500, $3,500 on it if you're in product discovery mode. But if you have something that's going to walk you through that process and say, hey, this is actually the perfect one from you. Here's 1,500 other people who gave it 4.9 stars. You're like, oh, I feel good about it, and more likely to make the purchase.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about?
So, I mean, for me, from a personal point of view, I'm very excited about the adoption of Rufus, because it means that SEO is going to fundamentally change. So you obviously, having a non-large language model, search engine optimization, and having a large language model SEO are two totally separate things. And it's, from a let's say a software perspective, an entrepreneurial perspective, it's an amazing opportunity, because all the established big boys of the industry basically have to adapt and throw everything they built away and kind of admit to themselves and be honest, like, okay, what we built was for one type of technology, and that's now archaic, and actually we need to just start from a blank piece of paper. And I can give you a really simple explanation why. In a large language model, what you put in a prompt, and then the prompt is turned into tokens, because LLMs don't work on words; they work in the base of tokens, which are numeric. And then those tokens are compressed for speed and for computational costs. So basically, you start with text, goes to numbers, numbers are compressed into the model, finds a product, reverses, comes back. So this whole kind of like historical approach of like, let's target the long tail keyword and like try and do the SEO on that, like with an LLM, probably not even getting into the prompt, right? The niche long tail keyword that people are searching for is not working like A9, where you're like trying to match against like specific search terms, because it's just not how these models work. So there's a fundamental shift that's with these adoption, which has happened, which means that like SEO is very different. First of all, they are. Second of all, it's multimodal, so they can read and understand images and the context of images, and that like has very important weighting in SEO. So if you're selling, a beige or a cream V-neck, and the customer types in, cream V-neck, a large language model is only going to show you cream V-necks because it can see the images, and if it's a black one or a red one, it's not going to show it to you because it knows the customer wants cream, and it gets the context of the search, and it can read the images. So the kind of the back end optimization is totally transforming, and it's an exciting opportunity as us. Like, I guess we're maybe a startup or a scale up or whatever you want to, newish kind of people into the scene. Like, there's a lot of open grass ahead of us, and so far from these existing players, I haven't, I watch them, and I think they kind of don't want to admit to themselves, like even the senior leadership, they built this stuff over 10 years, and they don't want to just admit that, like, it's time just to throw it away and build something new, which is, what we've been doing. So, yeah, it's very, very exciting as this adoption happens. I think, like, yeah, it's very exciting for us from a commercial, standpoint.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. I see this a lot on the ad tech side with Amazon as well, is it's changing so quickly. There's a difference between basically having rules based and putting LLM on top of it, AI on top of it, or inherently doing the same thing you're doing, is actually building it for the AI. And those are two different things. And it's crazy that the tech that was the best tech just 2 years ago is now rapidly coming to end of life. Like within the next couple of years, it won't make sense to use them anymore, except for a low cost option for, so maybe some smaller sellers, right? We're a crazy time.
It's like modem, right? It's like, or something like this, right? It's these, if you're using trying to do SEO on Amazon and you're not using a company that, there's not many, like, we see the copy, as you say, we see the copycats, but like, we're a sizable company now, with proper AI researchers and, engineers, but like, I'm sure we'll have a lot of competition as we go forward. And if you're not using one of these companies that actually are focusing on this, and it's you doing,
you can't afford not to. That's where it's at now. Just like, going back just on the Amazon advertising piece, if you're advertising at scale, you have to have ad tech to help you out. If you don't, you're just throwing money away. It's very, very interesting where you sit. Is so much of the advertising piece is actually on the conversion side, right? And if you can kick out high quality content that helps that AI, this new AI driven advertising platform, convert based on your AI images, if you can plug those two things in together, and it's constantly iterating, you get an automatic content update. If you could, I'm gonna go one step further, which I think this is a reality. then maybe 2 years, I don't know. If those things could be automated to then optimize the content in real time and A/B test, because we just did a dinner outside of Unboxed down in Austin. And one of the things that was coming up was, why doesn't Amazon, or they are in a way right now, it seems like, A/B testing the actual detail page. The actual content that's being shown. They're changing the bullet points, they're changing the titles, they're doing all these things, which everybody thinks in isolation they're doing it globally, but they're not. They're probably doing it isolated to see if their automatic AI updates are personalized for me. Why not personalize the entire page?
Yeah.
Why not? Right there, they're already touching every other part. They're giving personalized, sponsored ads all over the place. Give me highly optimized, which is kind of where we're going with Rufus. Even the content that you're going to show me, have it customized and personalized for me. If I can then connect the paid media with the content to drive a personalized experience for the actual shopper, that's not unrealistic. It's not.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I've been picking your brain. Any questions you have for me?
Well, I don't know. I've been asking you a few. I guess. What do you think the biggest blocker is for kind of brands to adopt AI?
The biggest blocker, and it's rightfully so, has been the nonstop failure of generative AI at this point to put out near 100% complete content and copy. Right, it's usually like 80% there. And then you, again, like you were saying, even you still have to have, when you're talking about like the different tech, so you have somebody a mid-journey, but you still have to have it over to Photoshop, right? You can still have it ChatGPT kick it out, but you still have to go to a copy editor. So inherently the failure of it in the past, we again have to get to the point where people can trust it and it works, and then it's going to take off like that. And then the only thing that's stopping it, well, there's two things: the brand team that wants to approve all the content that goes out, and then if you're in a consumable, like I came from the pharma space, the OTC pharma space, regulatory affairs, you're going to have departments that quality control that want to make sure, legal. How do you work in to make sure that this didn't kick out something that like says, cures the common cold, these things that you can't say. Or makes false claims or something like that in the content. That's the only other one. But they're not even presenting it at this point in time because they have to see a platform that works at scale. And it's got to be proven. And then once that happens, then they're taking it in, and then you're off to the races. I'm really impressed what you've built. And so, you're in for a fun ride for the next few years. It's going to be fun.
I hope so. It's been fun so far. So let's see where we go.
Well, keep crushing it, my friend. This has been a great conversation. I'm sure I'll have you back on. We should have you back on in like 3 or 6 months. We should see how fast this thing gets adopted. We definitely have a Rufus conversation because it's going to fundamentally change. But again, everybody, eContent, so ECOMTNT.ai. Go check it out. It's pretty impressive. Reach out to Max on LinkedIn. Max, again, thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Pleasure to talk to you.
It's been a blast, and we'll keep chatting for sure. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks everybody for listening in. Thanks, Max.
Thank you.